Okay, good morning, everybody. So here we have a little bit of C#. We have two sets of calls right here. The first one, we are setting google.com to string variable API call. We are trying to get a new instance of HTTPClient and set that to client. When I set this up, URI did not like that was a string. So, okay, before we start, let's just jump into debugging this. So let's go right here. I'm going to hit F5. Okay, so not what I want to do. Okay, so we're going to set breakpoint here and F5. By the way, I'm using Rider. I do have Visual Studio Code installed, but I found that for C#, Rider is just a little bit more helpful. Okay, so right now what we're looking at is this top line of code right here. So variable API call is going to be set to google.com. And as we can see, it is a string type. Get this a little bit bigger for you. Get rid of that. Bring that down. So nothing's happening because this line did not get called yet. Okay. So API call, it is a string type, but right now it is null, meaning nothing. Okay. So we can either hit step over, but my camera's in the way, so I'm going to hit F10. Okay. So now this line has been completed. API call is now in memory https://google.com. Okay, click on this, and that's what API call is set to. Okay, and even Rider kind of shows us, right here, API call is now set to google.com. Now we come down to the next line, and we're setting a client. Okay. And we know, okay, it's kind of where it gets confusing. So these are all static methods, I believe, in the system.net area of C#. So client is now set to new HTTP client once this line is going through. So we're going to step over this. And now client, look at this. Let's go down to the handler. Basically, we are trying to get data objects from google.com. Like, yeah, we can go into google.com, open up the inspector tool and go through all the stuff and look at it that way. But here we are actually calling, the goal is to call google.com and just get some type of data sets from google.com. So right now, client is a new instance of HTTP client. All right, we can see that right here. And then we can also do this again down below. We'll do a new website just to kind of walk through everything. And then right now, the API call, we set this earlier, the API call. The API call is a string type, google.com. And we want the URI to be set to a new instance of new RI. And we can highlight over that. We can see that it wants a string syntax, not null, needs to be set. And it initializes a new instance of the URI class with the specified URI. Okay. Nothing happened yet. So far we have API call is set to google.com and client is set to a new instance of HTTP client. Okay. Let's not get into too deep about what that is yet, because I don't know. Now we're going to step over. So F10. So now the URI is now set to a new instance of URI using google.com, because remember right here we called API in memory. The computer now thinks that API call is a string type of google.com. So we come down here, we want this new instance, and instead of typing www.google.com, we just set it the API call. A lot easier for readability. Okay. So now we come down to line 7, and the reason we're calling client right here, that is a coming off client is used right here. Okay, and now we know client is set to a new instance of HTTP client. Right, so now we're going to be using this, which we got the information from here, down here. Okay, and what we can do is come down to dot and base address. So let's read it. Property in class system.net.http.http client. Okay, so what does that mean? There are, I don't know the name of it, categories. Well, that's a class. So base address is a property of that class. Okay. So system is a class. System.net is a property in class system. HTTP is a property in the system.net class. HTTP client is a property in the system.net.http class. Okay. Follow along with me. So what does it do? It gets or sets the base address of the URI, Uniform Resource Identifier, of the internet resource used when sending requests. So what does that mean? We set google.com. So what we're doing is kind of, we can't just say variable string type API google.com equals client dot base address, because you're skipping steps, because you're not getting a new instance of the HTTP client. we're kind of, you kind of have to break through every single line. So right now, client is set to HTTP client. All right, let's see if we can find this. I don't know if you can see this or not. Right here, base address. So see all these highlighted objects here? Let's go to this. Client dot. Now, these are all properties of the client class. These right here. So we can read each one of them for what our goal is to do. For now, we just want base address. Okay, so then we come down, look at client, click the drop down, look base address. It is set to null, but it knows it's going to be URI. Okay, and URI is already google.com. Just remember line 5, we called a new instance of the new URI instance using our API call, which is actually google.com, and we set that to URI. So now we're telling that the base address for the client is google.com. That is our base address. Okay, so we had to use all these steps to tell it that our base address is google.com. All right, and we can look at this. We didn't call this yet, so let's step over. Right, so we can click on HTTP and look, now our base address is google.com. Okay, and look at all this information we can get. Google.com. Look at all this. Very nice. Okay, and look, the absolute path is /. So now our base address, client.base address is google.com. Okay, now we come down to line 8. What does this mean? We want to set a response that equals what the client is, which is client dot base address google.com. Okay, so that basically this is just google.com right here, client. Okay, now get async. There's some wacky things that go on with C#, and so if we do this async, it's a little complicated as far as like async and await, but what we're going to do, just do this for now, because we're kind of telling the response to wait. Let's get the information first, and then we'll use that. So I don't like some of this autofill stuff. Okay, so what is get async? Right here, send a get request to the specified URI as an asynchronous operation. And here's some exceptions. Okay. Parameters, request URI. The URI the request is sent to. Okay. So here we have a little auto-populated request URI. Nothing's set yet because we haven't completed this line. So the reason we're using string with a question mark is it could be string, might not be, but let's put it in there and we'll let you know if it is. The object is null right now. So the response is null. We did not complete this line yet. So let's step over and see what happens. Okay, so right now, the only thing we know is client is basically google.com. And the response is we're waiting to set the response once this line completes. Okay, we already know client.base address is google.com. Okay, so step over. All right, so what happened? Look at response. Look at all the stuff that just happened. Now under, let's say, response dot request message, look, we did a get request. Request URI was google.com. So look at content. Let's look for status code. Our status code is okay. The actual integer value is 200. That means we got a good response back from google.com. That's good. That is good because that leads us to our next set of lines here. So response now equals, let's look at this, status code 200. Okay, all this stuff, date, time, all that good stuff in there, okay? This is all set. Okay. So now we know that the response from, we did a get request, okay? We're waiting for a response. And now we got a good response, okay? So now we know our response is okay, okay? And inside of, let's see if we can go down in here. Look at data objects. I was just kind of looking around to see what kind of information I can pull out of google.com. Okay, so this is just some kind of test I was kind of running through. So the reason I called some of these is just to see what I can get from google.com. Okay, so now we want to look at, we're going to set data objects of string type. We're going to say that is empty string. Okay, pretty simple. Step over that. So look, data objects is empty string. Empty. It's not set to anything. It's set to empty string. Look right here. Empty string. Okay. Now you could do that, but I believe for C# it prefers that. Okay. So now we come down to this if statement. What is if? Boolean, right? Let's if. Is it true or is it false? Okay. So, sorry, it's boring. So if response is success status code. Okay, let's look at this first. Let's break it down. Is success status code. Where's that coming from? Well, that's in the response body. So let's come down here. So in the response body, because remember, our response body is all the information we got from this line right here. And in that response body, we can look down. This is everything we got back from google.com. Okay. And the is success status code, that is a property of the response class. Okay. This is a dynamic class, not static. I forget, but we create it. But is success status code a property of the response class? Okay. Whatever the dot is, this is something within this. This is like a child to this parent. Okay. So in the response, let's look. We can base this off of anything. If we could even do is the version 1.1. We could do that as well. We could do status code. If status code is okay, there's so many things you can do based on what you want, but the easiest one would be is success status code true? So is success status code? Well, that right now is set to true. The reason it's set to true is because we got a good response from google.com. So if the response dot this section of memory is set to true, then we run this little, you can call it a function or just call it a line, this little thing right here, okay? I have it commented. We want to parse the response body, okay? So now, if it was true, let me see if okay, we'll do it down here. Okay, so this is true. We know that's true because we can see it right here. Look, right here, true. You see that? So that's true, which means this is going to run. Let's step over. Okay. So we are on here now. If response is okay, which we know it is, then run this line. So now we want to set data objects to the response.content. So whatever is in, okay, so look, read as string async. Serialize the HTTP content to a string as an asynchronous operation. What does that mean? It could be grabbing HTML. It could be grabbing whatever is on google.com, the front page, google.com. List that out as all that HTTP content as a string. Okay. So then we want to set that content. Let's see where we already have response.content. So let's go to here. I'm down here. So look, you can see or not, but if I only click on content, the property of response, it's already shown me response.content equals HTTP connection response content. Okay. I have all this information in here. Headers. Not really more headers. Okay. Gives a shit about this. But if we look at response, let's click on that. Response. Now look at all this more information we have. And look, we have content right here. That's going to give us exactly what we just saw in the content property. But now we're just going to step back, get more information that's not just the content body. Okay, so look, we still have our status code. We have the content. We actually have two contents. That's underscore content. And they actually almost say the same thing. Versions, tag members, all this stuff. So what we're doing is anything in the response.content section, which is this, read as a string, okay? Serialize the HTTP content to a string as an asynchronous operation. Okay, so now, and this will run because we know that this is true. Okay, so look, we're going to step over. Okay, and that is that. And this is what happens when, let's do this. And that, so this is data objects, okay? So what we're going to do, comment that, command save and run. That's beautiful. This is all the, right here. This is all the content from the new response. Oh, sorry, I'm in the wrong one. The same thing though, but this is all the content of the response body read as a string. Okay. Look at all that stuff right here. Let's see if we can look at any of this. Doc type, here's some HTML. Item type, look at, this is just all the string from the HTTP from google.com. Look, we got some CSS in here. Images, gradients. Look at all that. Beautiful. That is beautiful. Value unlucky, one-click function. Look at that. That is all of the content read as a string in the response body from google.com. All right. How was that? So let's do something different here. This, I just did GitHub. Okay. Same thing. Everything's the same. The only thing now is in this if statement, I did an else. What happens if the success status code is not 200? Okay. Let's try it. Okay. Okay. Down to here. Okay, everything is still the same. The only thing we changed is just a different website. Okay. So we know that's true. We know that that is going to run. And look at this else statement. So else is if this statement is true, meaning if this statement is true, then run this right here. That's all it means. if this statement is false, then else we run this line right here, whatever else is in there, okay? So what we're going to do is not worry about the google.com data objects. Let's look at, and the only thing I changed is like, new call instead of API call, new client, new this, new that, just different, just to change it up a little bit. Okay. So we know that this is going to run because we didn't change anything. This is true, which means this will run. Okay. So let's try something. Let's turn that off. Get rid of that guy. Okay. What about this? What if we tell it? What if we tell it it's false? What happens? If this is false, which it is false, we're hard coding it to be false. And save, let's save that. We're telling that to be false. We're forcing it to be false. Okay. F5. What'd you do? Okay. A little bit. Okay. So we are right here. This line did not run yet. So if this statement is false, which we set it to be false, it's going to skip over the true section and go to the false section. Okay. So let's skip over. Look at that. This is now false. We set it to be false. Okay. What happens now? Now, new data objects is set to string type error. Okay. Instead of new, and we can do that by adding this. New data objects is empty string. We are putting this, we have to look at scope now. So everything inside here is its own little world. It doesn't know what's out here. Okay. But we know that outside of this, new data objects is set to empty string. Okay. It's just, we're telling it, hey, wait, because we don't know what's going to happen. So you just hang out here. We don't know what's going to be put in here yet. That's dependent upon if the response from the async is like a 202, a 200, or a 404. 404 means it wasn't a good connection. We didn't get a good response back. So in a sense, we are telling it, hey, we did not get a good response back. Okay. So now, and we can say whatever we want in here. We can set the, uh-oh, there's a problem, or, uh-oh, hot dog. Uh-oh, hot dog. Okay. We will save that when we're done, but do this, and save. Let's run this guy. Okay, so look, this is false. Let's step over. Comes down here. It doesn't even look at this anymore because it's false. It's like, I don't even want anything to do with you now. Okay. New data objects is still empty string. This line did not run yet. Okay. Still empty string. Now look. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to come down here. We will console.writeLine, hello world, just so we know where things kind of start and end. And then we'll also run through, and boom. And look at this. It worked. Hello world, Uh-oh, hot dog. Okay. And that is that. So my next goal is to put all this stuff into a function, because look, we're repeating ourselves now. And the point of a function is to get rid of repeatability. Okay. So that's it for today's video. This is my first video. Yeah. See what happens. But yeah, coming up next, or whenever I get to it, we will be figuring out how to put all this into a function and get rid of all this repeatability, because it's very messy. Okay. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye-bye.